Hello, very good evening everyone. The National Crimes Records Bureau data, the NCRB data, shows that of the 9,600 cases of atrocities against the deprived caste that went to trial in Karnataka in 2016, there were only 25 cases of convictions, which is it puts the conviction rate at 0.26. Such a low conviction rate in a very well governed state like Karnataka would make us imagine that what might be the situation in the other states where law and order is a day-to-day challenge. One number that comes to my mind now is the general conviction rate in India is about 6%. So by that standard as well, the conviction rate in Karnataka for the SC/ST atrocities cases is very, very low, right? So now you may be thinking that why all of a sudden I have started telling you these numbers. So I watched the movie Jai Bhim. This movie is what has become a big hit among various sections of society now, and it's being widely discussed in the social media and even in the TV channels, right? And I watched this movie expecting it to be a film about an Ambedkarite or a film derived from the principles of Ambedkar. However, the movie has not covered this in entirety, as it singularly focused upon a point that is and very beautifully portrayed as to how the state machinery, that is the police, oppresses and exploits the downtrodden and the marginalized communities. This movie portrays the 1993 Cuddalore incident, which left me teary-eyed, and I'm sure many of you who watched this movie also went through this similar emotional churn. So again, you might be thinking that is this video yet another video about the story of this movie or a review of this movie? Certainly not. Those of you who watches non-detailed videos would by now know that I usually go into very much details and kind of portray the scenarios or the story in a different perspective with a lot of data. So even in this video, I would be covering the story of the CPIM leader Govidan, whom you have seen in the movie for probably a couple of minutes or maybe a little more than that. But his story is also equally important, if not more important than the lawyer's story. And I thought we should definitely cover his story as well. Apart from his story, I will also be talking about the struggles that Justice Chandru had been through in his life. Plus, of course, I will be talking about a lot of numbers and data to prove whether this movie was based on facts or myth. So let's begin. This film is set in the village Kammapuram in Virudhachalam town of Cuddalore district in Tamil Nadu. The real village is said to be inhabited by 4 families belonging to the Kurumbar tribal community. In 1993, while they were on their way to neighboring villages to harvest paddy, 40 pieces of jewellery went missing from a house in Gopalapuram village. The police who came to the village to inquire about the robbery intimidated the people there and picked up Rajakannu and some other tribal men. Govidan, a member of Marxist Communist Party, the CPIM party, intervened and told police to hand over Rajakannu. Rajakannu was falsely implicated and arrested in this case of robbery, and police kind of used the third degree on him, where they stood naked and severely beat him in the police station. Rajakannu's wife, who went to the police station, was shocked to see his condition, and the following day Rajakannu went missing from the police custody during the investigation. Later, Comrade Govidan rallied the CPM volunteers and carried out various staged struggles to inform the people about the situation. However, as no action was taken by the authorities to find Rajakannu, Govidan sought the help of a High Court lawyer K. Chandru in Chennai. The interim judgment was delivered in 1996, 3 years after the trial in the Madras High Court. The family of the victim was awarded a compensation of rupees 2,65,000 plus 3 cents of land by the government, as per the orders of the Honorable High Court. After Rajakannu went missing, police filed a report that Rajakannu's body was dumped in a fishing boat in Jain Kundam in Ariyalur district. Following this, the case of Rajakannu's disappearance was turned into a murder trial. 12 people were arrested, including Dr. Ramachandran, a retired DSP, an inspector, and also an assistant inspector, who had falsely testified before the High Court bench. The High Court also accepted Comrade Govidan's request to appoint K. Venkatraman of Chidambaram as the public prosecutor. The trial court also transferred the case to fast track court, and the verdict came in 13 years, where 5 guards were sentenced to 14 years in prison and the doctor to 3 years in prison, as they falsely testified. Comrade Govidan, who had assisted in the investigation of the case, was intimidated, but he continued to stand for the justice. He continued to stand for justice despite being offered huge chunks of money. He even cancelled his marriage for this particular case. He later got married after 13 years at the age of 39. This was shown to some extent in the movie, but not fully, as the movie focused more on the lawyer's story, right? And this movie also in a way tells us that how Communist Party always comes forward for fighting for just cause, and how they also fail to garner votes in the current political scenario, which is very unfortunate, right? And it is often said that communist ideology and communist politics has become irrelevant in today's India. But when there is a need to fight for a cause, it is the same ideology which becomes very relevant. Correct? Think about it. So coming back to the movie Jai Bhim, it is based on the case Justice Chandru took up when he was an advocate at the Madras High Court. One of the many legal battles he fought for the marginalised communities. At the end of the case, the court ordered rupees 5,000 to be paid to Advocate Chandru as cost, as his lawyer's fee. He sent that amount to Maithili Sivaraman, a leader of the CPIM and the All India Democratic Women's Association, saying that it might help them fight for the cause of other women. Such was the character and nature of Justice Chandru. So, Justice retired K. Chandru was one of the founding members of SFI in Tamil Nadu, which is the Students' Federation of India. After completing his law degree in 1976, he started his practice. He was one of the founder leaders of the left-wing All India Lawyers Union and was an office bearer of AILU Tamil Nadu unit until his elevation as judge. In 2006, Justice Chandru was appointed as Judge of High Court. He took a stand against many colonial customs of the court. He had asked the lawyers not to address him as Right Lordship, which is a colonial tradition, right? He disposed of a record 96,000 cases before retiring in March 2013. Among his landmark judgments were rulings on common burial grounds irrespective of caste, community-based reservation at known meal centers, women becoming priests in temples, and doing away with police permission to stage plays. And he declared his assets both at the time of his appointment and retirement. He was recommended to the post of judge by then Madras High Court Chief Justice Sri Subhashan Reddy, but it took 6 years for the system to finally appoint him as judge. So even a gem of a person like Justice Chandru had to wait 6 years for his deserving post, which tells us that no system is perfect. Hence, even our justice system provides several layers of opportunities for appeals, right? Still, it is widely believed that the Supreme Court is not final because they are right. The Supreme Court is right because they are final. We need not believe the people, but we should have faith in our institutions. However, the system that connects these institutions can always be questioned. That is the beauty of our constitutional framework, right? Which is a trait very hard to find in any other framework, either within public or private space outside the constitutional setup. Now, as I do in all my videos, let's look at some numbers which would keep us honest to the cause that this movie displayed or showcased. 37% of under trials spent between 3 months and a year in jail in 2019 without being convicted of a crime. So state is all powerful with several machinery at its disposal, and when this all powerful state prosecutes an individual, the individual already starts with certain disadvantage. So to create a level playing field, every accused is presumed to be innocent until proven guilty by a court of law, and the burden of proof has been put on the state essentially to create that level playing field. Yet 7 in 10 of the 4,700 people in the prison in Indian jails are under trials, according to the NCRB 2019 data, which was on prisons, which was released in August 2020. Only 14 countries in the world have a higher proportion of under trial or remand prisoners. A majority of Indian under trials are from marginalised caste. In the 17 years to 2019, nearly 2 in 3, which is 64% on average, were from SCs, STs or Adivasi communities and other backward classes. Further, more than 1 in 5 under trials were Muslims, the highest proportion among religious minorities. It is often observed that counter cases are filed against marginalized caste and minorities who may have filed a case of atrocity. And the investigation and trial in these counter cases are always quite swift, while the cases filed by Dalits and Adivasis against dominant caste communities will be very slow. As stated in the beginning, this leads into low conviction rate of atrocities cases, and I can connect this to the beginning statement where I have stated that Karnataka is observed to have a conviction rate of 0.26% in the atrocities cases, which is very, very low, right? Experts were of view that the quality of legal services, particularly free legal aid in India, is very poor. Nearly 80% of India's population qualifies for legal aid, but since 1995, only 15 million have been provided the legal services. by the legal service institutions established under the Legal Services Authorities Act 1987. Legal aid lawyers do not put enough effort and present the case well. Quality legal representation is not only an individual's right but has a role of security valve to ensure that no person is imprisoned unnecessarily. The cost of litigation should not be an issue. Article 39A of the Constitution provides for free legal aid to those who cannot afford it. However, the reality is very far from the ideals of Article 39A. India's prisons are overcrowded with an average occupancy rate of 118.5% in 2019. Again, as per the NCRB data, there is a tendency for the police to make unnecessary arrests. This happens despite the Supreme Court ruling which states that suspects in crimes punishable by less than 7 years of incarceration should not ordinarily be arrested. But the police feels pressurized to arrest because they feel that if arrests are not made, then it leads to a lack of trust in the law enforcement, which is also true, right? Once persons, particularly those from the marginalized social groups, are registered in the criminal justice system, they tend to be targeted and profiled for offences repeatedly. This is the case with denotified tribes like Pardis in Madhya Pradesh and Kuruvas in Tamil Nadu, who were considered as criminal tribes by the colonial administration under the Criminal Tribes Act 1871, which got repealed in 1952. However, the practice with the legacy of profiling and stigmatization still continues. This unfortunate situation has been depicted in the movie. In fact, the movie starts with a scene which portrays this unfortunate situation. The police are all empowered to grant bail called a station bail for the bailable offences, but it hardly ever happens. Again, this is because of fear of allegations of discrepancies and corruption in the police. And we usually assume that the non-bailable warrant would mean a bail cannot be granted in any circumstance, which is not true. In non-bailable offences, though a station bail is not possible or allowed, but a judicial court can always grant a bail. So in any which way, bail is considered as a rule, while arrest is an exception. However, today the state missionaries seem to have reversed this understanding. Nearly 3 in 5 under trials were confined to up to 6 months in jail, according to 2019 prisons data. At 151 police persons per 100,000 population, India has one of the lowest police to population ratios in the world. But delays in investigation and longer incarceration of under trial prisoners can often be traced to poor quality of investigation. The percentage of under trial prisoners confined for more than 3 years has increased by 140% since 2000, while the percentage share of under trial prisoners confined for less than 1 year has decreased by 7.5%. So when we see all these numbers and data, it's very imperative that, and it's also very apparent that the movie is factually and statistically correct. And the picturization is of course very heart-wrenching, right? It sheds a light on the plight of the tribals and the downtrodden and the marginalized communities. So our society needs more people like Justice Chandru and people like Govidan, right? In fact, there are many good souls out there who may well be the next Justice Chandru. But do you know the real problem? The real problem is that these good men and women are not even aware of these prevailing conditions. The privileged classes and castes have covered up these issues under the carpet so well that most of us don't even realize that such a world exists. So I hope more movies like Jai Bhim would help us lift those curtains and would force us us to see and face the reality.